Okay, great. Now, Ann, can you give a just a,
You want to go over the grant itself?
not yet, but I
Okay.
want to just get, I want to go over a quick overview of the situation, I guess, with the
Okay.
two water districts. That we definitely have questions about the grant, which we will be asking. So, Ann, can you just give the overview real quick?
Yeah, I mean, it was my understanding from the meeting that what was being voted on was whether or not to merge the Blodgett Water District with the Glenham, I think with the Glenham Water District. And that was the big, and surrounding that was apparently there was a grant in 2015 that was applied for and received, but never truly utilized. So now they're, we're trying to get that taken care of and either use the grant or don't use the grant, but we're trying to kind of finalize the tying up that grant. And that is inclusive of, if I understand correctly, there were 5 different mergers that could have happened under this grant, 3 of which did not happen. And again, that's my understanding of it. I might be wrong, but that's my understanding.
Thank you. So now I guess I'll turn it over. And I'm going to call, just because we have such a big group, it's already, there's more than 20 people on the call already. So I'm going to call on Ozzy and John individually, and I will be, just so that everybody knows, I have muted everyone as you come into the call. So if you want to speak, you'll have to unmute yourself. Please send me questions so that I can ask and on your behalf, or you're welcome to ask yourself, but just raise your hand, okay? Because I'm going to try to keep this as orderly as I can. John, I have you on mute, so you got to unmute yourself. But if you could say, did that sound about right, what Ann just said?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, and Ozzy, you can chime in. The grant originated out of the Lacola administration, and it was going to do a couple things. One, merge the Brinkerhoff Water District with a bunch of mini districts, including out-of-district customers. 2, the Dutchess Park Sewer District, again, merging with a bunch of mini districts to include out-of-district customers. Now, those out-of-district customers do pay a higher rate when they're not inside a district. 3, the Roundabout Water District to merge in with out-of-district customers, and the Roundabout Sewer District to merge in with out-of-district customers. This last one, Blodgett and Glenham Water Districts, I believe were the last phase of this grant.
So just to phrase back what you said, so it was back in 2015, the town had applied for, or 2015 was the year, I just remember that from the call, had applied for a grant that was $100,000.
Yep.
Does that sound about right? $100,000 grant to merge water districts. And the grant has been used, but it wasn't used to merge this last one that we're sitting in right now. Ozzy, do you want to chime in? Can you say, is that pretty much your understanding as well?
Yeah, Councilman Forman's got that pretty much accurate. The only difference is that when we consolidate, then we get reimbursed from the state later. I believe that's the only difference, and it's more than the 5 districts. Like, for example, Brinkerhoff Water District, you have what they did back in the day when the Brinkerhoff Water District was formed. It was just basically Dutchess Park, and then they added Hoos Boulevard, Avianis, Mountain View Apartments, Elmcrest, et cetera, et cetera. And that alone there was 5 or 6 districts into one. And so it's more than 3 out of the 5 or whatever you termed it in the beginning. But those mini districts got hooked into the bigger districts, and we couldn't hook into Beacon Hills because Beacon Hills had a higher debt load for the other districts, and that would not have been fair. So they stayed out of the equation.
Got it. Okay. So, all right. So I think in essence, we're that all kind of makes sense. So now, now I want to get to a couple things that happened. I want to get to whatever went down during the Fishkill board meeting. And unfortunately, with Brian not attending, he can't speak to some of the things that he was bringing up, but I'm going to ask you guys to speak to them. And again, I'm going to call on you directly. So I'll start with John at this point. John, with the statement that it's, I'm trying to remember now, it's about paperwork or, the inconvenience. By the way, you're muted. So I want to just finish. You'll have to unmute yourself, which is fine, but I just want to finish asking my
Okay.
question. I guess that did jump out at me. He seemed very vocal about this being a paperwork thing. He kept throwing that around. What did he mean by that?
Okay. I'm going to read it right from the grant. The goals of the project are to eliminate the various small water and sewer districts, along with out-of-district customers, and combine them into a larger established district in order to achieve economies of scale and reduce duplicate costs. The project is intended to deliver the following outcomes. 1, savings in overall operational and maintenance costs. 2, development of consistent water usage rates for all customers. 3, minimize capital costs per household for district capital projects. 4, improve town water and sewer district management. So when Brian said paperwork, he probably should have read right from the grant, because that tells you what the benefits are for this grant.
Okay, so the benefit, so it doesn't really, there are benefits to the grant. It's just not really a paperwork thing.
Well, I think what he meant was paperwork within town hall. So everybody who are inside the district are paying a similar rate for water. It's consistent, I think that's what he meant.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, because I know, again, he didn't want to be here, so he can't answer for himself, but I do appreciate that. All right, so you're saying internally when he was talking about that, there would be additional paperwork, for the town, I guess.
Right, but I mean, that's just one piece of it.
Right. Well, I think it's important to look at some of the other pieces of it that, for whatever reason, were not mentioned during the call. But now I'll ask Ozzy the same question. What the impact of paperwork and that argument, is that something that concerns you? Or not? I don't know.
No, it's not a paperwork issue with me. It's a matter that the Bellagio Water District is at its capacity, and if we combined the Glenham Water District, which has excess capacity, it would allow more development on the 9D corridor going toward the Putnam County line. So I hope everybody watching understands that there's water lines that run all the way to the Putnam County line. So if we have a project down in that area, as your town board, if a development comes through, it wouldn't be an as of right for that developer unless you wanted that water. And then if it was a good project, then we can negotiate for more capacity from the source, which is the village of Fishkill. I think that's more important to have that oversight and that second level of, how do you want to call it, defense for the residents of Fishkill. And that was the reason why I voted against that consolidation. And I did vote for all the other consolidations of the other water districts and mini districts, because they make sense. For example, the Brinkerhoff Water District, which consists of those Duchess Park, Goose Boulevard, Avianis, Elmcrest, etc. That water district is at capacity, so they can't really develop much more unless the town gives them permission and the health department gives them permission. So it's another tool for the residents, for the town board and the planning board to protect the residents of the town of Fishkill. That's the way I view it.
So, and that, honestly, that's been the most that we've gotten in over email is that concern that, merging these water districts would open the door to have additional development built out there. So I'm going to ask John this. At this point, is the fact that that we're not merged, is that helpful in preventing additional development from springing up along that corridor on Route 9? You got to unmute yourself. Sorry. It's an automatic thing.
I think it makes it a little more difficult, like Ozzy said, but if a developer wants to buy water directly from the village of Fishkill, I don't know how anybody's going to stop them. So I think Ozzy's argument that, you know, the Blodgett Water District is out of water capacity, I don't know. I think he should choose his words a little better because,
That's a good question. So now let me ask Ozzy. Ozzy, can a developer go and propose an apartment building to be built, you know, next to Continental Commons and request more water?
Well, it depends the location, because if they're near the Continental Commons is within the Blodgett Water
Okay.
District, and within a state judge, as everybody knows, ruled that we have to give them water. So this has nothing to do with them. But if there's some like Snook Road has some vacant lots. That's right next to the Snook well field. As your supervisor and as the fiscal officer of the town of Fishkill, I would try to get those properties into the Snook well field so the citizens of Fishkill, the town of Fishkill, could benefit from that connection. The other question was they can just buy water directly from the village. They would have to make a contract. He's twisting a certain project to where yes or no. So let's say for example, 10, 15 years down the road, one of those mines is done and they want to put some high density housing in there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go through so much stuff and you have to have the water capacity to get it. So if you don't have the water capacity, so if they wanted to put up 200 homes on a 200-acre lot, it's 1 acre zoning, whatever it is, you could put one per. But if you have high density housing and you have municipal water, with municipal water, you could almost double, possibly triple the density of those projects. This is just a tool. Maybe there is some type of project where warrants the town board to say in 2035, yeah, we should give these guys this extra capacity. Let's negotiate with the village for a bigger contract to allow more water to be supplied. But that at least allows us to say no if we just don't want to do it. I think it's a pretty good, easy, black and white issue here, guys. I don't think there's much to this.
I just got a question in the chat. Somebody is asking how much. Okay, so there was also a concern over like the penalty of not using this grant. So can anybody tell us how much will need to be paid back if we don't use it, John?
I believe, and Ozzy can correct me, I believe our internal people, engineers, are dealing with the state right now just to, you know, because of the failed consolidation of this final phase. There are definitely some costs that we have incurred. So that will probably not get reimbursed by the state on. But I don't know if it's 5,000 or 15,000. I don't know, but they are working with the state as we speak.
Okay, and Ozzy, that sounds about right to you, that there will be something and it'll be around in that window, 5 to 15 possibly.
Yeah. John is correct. So what you got to understand something, right? If you look, we really didn't put the Beacon Hills project into this. We determined right off the bat that it would not qualify. So you're talking we probably did 80% of the work already. So you're talking 515, even if it's 20,000. Our project managers, our engineers, they would bill us and they would get reimbursed by the state. So that's how that would work. But the issue is here that I'm communicating with the state is that we had a public hearing. And the reason to have a public hearing to consolidate the water district is to get public input. And once we started having these public hearings, people started contacting me. Hey, supervisor, this one district doesn't have capacity. What happens when you have the other capacity? It would make a mockery of the public hearing system if we did not listen to the citizens of the town of Fishkill. So what is it worth to the residents of Fishkill? Spend 20 grand making sure in the future we have control, or worrying about a developer coming in, suing the town of Fishkill for hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is, to me, it's a no-brainer. We protect the citizens of Fishkill, and that's how I feel.
All right. Another question that just came up. Ultimately, for that 20,000 or 15 or 5 or whatever it is, will the taxpayers in Fishkill be responsible for that?
It would depend which water district. So there's 2 water districts around the Glenham and the Blodgett water districts. And I believe we have significant reserves in both of those. So any type of payment would not result in any type of rate increase.
John, do you agree with that? Is that
I don't know enough, so I can't dispute.
Okay.
I'll take Ozzy at his word.
Yeah.
So we got another question, which I don't quite understand, but the question is, so it isn't actually paying, but not getting reimbursed.
That's pretty much the accurate statement. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
And
Uh,
that's not it. That's not necessarily true. I'm going to dispute this with the state, and the argument's going to be the law requires us to have a public hearing. Why are we having these public hearings if we're not going to listen to the citizens? You know, we have to have a public hearing. So what is the purpose of the public hearing? To get this grant. The way this is set up, it mandates you to do something which might not be in the best interest of your community. And this is one of those things where we have checks and balances. The law requires a public hearing. We listen to the residents. We listen to their concerns. And quite frankly, it was the right decision that I made, and I believe Councilman Totino. We have control over this special resource. We have another layer of control over developers. I think it's priceless to have this. And I'm going to fight the state for the state to pay this money because they required the public hearing. If there was no public hearing required and none of this other stuff, then I could see their point of view. But to go against the wishes of the citizens of Fishkill, I think that's a big story right there amongst itself. I'm looking to get reimbursed by the state from this.
Someone is asking, can you ask if the board is going to vote to appeal the ruling about Continental Commons and the lack of water capacity for that project? I think I can answer this. That answer is no, right? I mean, that's a done deal. Or
A state Supreme Court judge required the town board move the Blodgett Water District to include the property for Continental Commons. And that's what the town board did.
So there will be no appealing or anything like that. Okay.
The situation was that's when we found out that there was no excess capacity in the Blodgett Water District with this project.
Okay.
Now, since the judge made that order, we have to make an arrangement to give them that water. This is where the public started getting these questions. Hey, wait a second. If you add the other district, then there's going to be plenty of capacity to develop down the Route 9 corridor. And I'm telling you, their taxpayers are already paid for a water line that goes all the way to the Putnam line. That pipeline wasn't put there just for the heck of it. That was meant and spent for future developers. Now, if there's no capacity, they can't put up as many homes as they could if we allow the high density housing with the water capacity. This is very simple. There's not much to this.
Okay. Let's see. There's a bunch of questions coming in. Another one. What is the timeline?
On what?
I don't know. What is the timeline, I guess, on making this call? Or is there a
What
timeline?
call?
About, I don't know. Whoever wrote that, can you please just expand a little bit? I'll go to the next question. The next question is, what is the impact of the aquifer if there is high density housing along the Route 9 corridor?
The town passed in the last 4 years, we passed a water aquifer protection law. We're involved with DWSP2. It's a great grant from the state. I'm working with the highway superintendent directly. In fact, the highway superintendent, Carmen Estevan, was up in the county with a whole bunch of superintendents talking about how great this program is and how Fishkill is the only community around here that's doing an active role in protecting and preserving our aquifer. We are blessed in the town of Fishkill with great water. We might have some salt here and there, but it's great water. And my goal is to protect our most natural resource to the best that I can. And part of that is it's like a glass of water. There's so many straws you can put in it before it runs dry and your water turns brown.
Okay, so so I got a little clarification. I think they're saying the state is currently deciding on the grant particulars. What is the timeline?
Well, we do the paperwork. We send it to them. Oh, I'm sorry. The project manager will submit forms to the state. They get it back. We approve, disapprove. I'm going to appeal it. Maybe we'll do a countersue. But I can tell you for a fact, John is right. We've had this thing since 2015. You're talking 8 years. So who knows how long this thing is going to take to get resolved. But a majority of the districts that can be consolidated and the sewer districts have been consolidated to benefit the residents of Fishkill. For example, some places were billed by cubic feet, other by yards, and you run into billing questions where if there's a mistake and you're billing somebody by feet when they're supposed to be by yards, some people are paying more and some people are paying less, and not everybody's paying the fair share. So this is a positive program. I'm glad that we got 80% of it, maybe more done. And like I said, if it wasn't for development, I may have supported the last piece of consolidation, but this was the last piece. You're talking only 2 districts. Bickerhoff was 5, 6, maybe 7 mini districts into one. So the effort of doing these 2 were not as burdensome as the other ones were.
Okay, and Greg has just shot me a text, and I think he's kind of waiting to be let in. But before we exchange one of you, there were a question specifically for John. John, do you feel that this is a good to merge the water systems is a good idea, and if so, why?
Well, because of the reasons I stated that's right in the grant. You know, it's giving the users a consistent water rate where everybody's paying a little different. We're bringing outside customers to be included in these water districts, which hadn't happened before. So now they're getting the benefit of a lower rate on their water. So, these water districts, sometimes have to have capital improvements, and the more users you have in a district, the easier it is on the burden of the people to improve that district. The town board doesn't pay for these improvements.
Right.
The people in the district pay for them. So yes, it's absolutely was a good idea 8 years ago, and it's a good idea now.
Okay.
And I will say one thing.
Yeah.
I know Ozzy likes to talk about developers and development. I'm looking at the grant right here. It's like 6 pages long. There's not one word about developers or development in this grant.
Well, I mean, I can personally ask, like, does that mean that it doesn't open the door to more development just because it's not in the grant?
And what I'm saying is, if they wanted to, they can buy water directly from the village. It doesn't. It's not the end all that a piece of property is not in a water district. In the water district, I mean, it's not the end all. I mean, if somebody wants to develop a piece of property and they need water, they're going to find water. They may pay a little more for it, but they're going to find water.
All right, someone's asking if they can buy it. Does it mean they can hook up?
Well, I assume that if they're buying it, they're going to be able to hook up. And like Ozzy said, I think they got to go through the health department, and they're going to have to take some extra steps. There's no doubt about it. But I disagree with Ozzy saying that this is the end all. This is what we did, and we're protecting the we're protecting the water, protecting the residents. It's a little off base, I think.
Okay, okay, another question for council. Is Councilman Forman wanting to have control over what is built, and how important is that to him?
Well, control, I mean, it's why we have zoning laws. So if somebody wants to build something that's within the zoning, then they got to follow certain rules. When they want to do something outside of the zoning laws, that's when they have to come in front of the town board and state their case. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that, like, I know that our group it feels very strongly about that. Like, we literally won't get involved in issues where there's not the zoning is set, right? Like, it's fair is fair. So so hopefully that answered your question with that. Let me see if okay. Like, if they can't hook, okay, Greg is asking, hold on. So okay, here's another one. I'm sorry. Wouldn't they have to have the board approval if they weren't in the district, not just ask for water from the village?
Ozzy can correct me, but they typically would go in front of the town board and say, we'd like to build this. We would like to be part of, quote unquote, the Blodgett Water District. Now, the town board can make that determination and say, yes, we will include your property into the Blodgett Water District. Or they can say no.
Ozzy, do you want to respond to that at all? Is that about right? The board has the final say, basically, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and we do this periodically for single family homes here and there. I think we recently did one on Route 9D last year, or the year before. We got one coming in Brickerhoff, but these are single family homes. But the issue is when they come to you and they know there's no water capacity, you have extra leverage. Now you can hear people say they can buy water from the village and all this and that. But you've seen how upset the village is when members of the town board challenge them on the Jackson Street project. You think the village of Fishkill is going to dictate Route 9D development? So we got to be very careful. We got to be very careful to say, oh yeah, the developer's going to come on Route 9 and say, bam, we're going to get X amount of gallons to put 500 homes in the town of Fishkill, and we're going to get the water from the village, and F you, town of Fishkill, in our jurisdiction. That's not going to happen.
So, I'm going to paraphrase. Oh, okay. Greg is here. Which means, I mean, Ozzy, can you, and John, like, who's going to go?
I think you should keep John on.
I do
And
too. Yeah.
why don't you mute me? And do you have my phone number?
Yes, I think so. What
Text
else?
me if you want me back on.
Okay, sounds good.
Just text me. All right, I'm leaving, guys.
All right, thanks, Ozzy.
Hi, Ozzy.
All right, let's see. I've just admitted Greg to the room. And I'm going to try to, okay, so I don't see any new questions in the chat. So if anyone has them, don't forget to ask. I think I've answered. There were a few that came in one after the other. Okay. Does the town have a legal budget set aside if the town desires to countersue the state for the use of the grant?
We have in our budget money for attorney fees. I wouldn't say we have, a lot of money. If something was going to cost us a lot of money, the town board would probably have to either find the money inside the budget or vote to take money out of fund balance.
Right.
If it's a large expenditure.
Okay, Greg, since you just joined in, there were some questions that kind of I directed to John and to Ozzy, and then I'll direct to you. And if anyone else has specific questions, let me know. Okay, let's see. I think what's the impact on the aquifer? It's current. Okay. Got a new one in. Oh, for the person who just asked, someone is asking, what is the fine for not using the grant? And we started with that. That was in the very beginning, where we had said it was going to, there could be a penalty. Ozzy said up to $20,000. And then I believe that was mitigated a little bit by the fact that we would be asking the state to get involved so that the town wouldn't have to pay and that it wouldn't hit the taxpayers. Greg, since you haven't talked yet, is that about what you understand?
Yes, yeah, that is my understanding on it. That the town would be looking to get the state involved in this. We acted in good faith in pursuing this grant opportunity. Ultimately reaching the decision as it is the town board's discretion not to, complete the process of the actual, the merger, the consolidation of the districts, does not render the work that was done meaningless. It's certainly valuable to the town to have had that work done. And we did act in good faith in pursuing it. There is obviously a difference between doing the work and ratifying that work as a correct action for the town, which we did not.
Okay, we have another, I don't know if it's sort of a question, it's sort of a statement. I would ask everyone to just keep it to questions, but this is so for big developments, if they merged the two districts, they could just build. I understand the supervisor is trying to protect us. So I guess that's just like a restatement for big developments. If they merge the two districts, they could just build because it would be zoned for that, or potentially zoned for a development or a business. And it would be easier were there, not impossible, but easier were there to be this availability of the merged water districts.
Yeah, so we've been told the Blodgett Water District probably going to be close to Ozzy's words capacity. Probably when Continental Commons would be built out 100%. That could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now.
Right.
If those districts merged, Glenham does not use. They only use about half of the amount of water that they have the ability to use. So if we did merge those districts, then Blodgett wouldn't have to go back to the town or village and say, hey, Continental Commons is now built out. We need more water. What can you do for us? And the village is going to sell us more water because that's what they do. They sell water. If we merged, then we wouldn't have to go back to the village and ask for more water because Glenham has plenty to spare.
Yeah,
Okay.
John, if I could just jump in.
Well, Greg,
being
just
late
so
to
that
the
you know, just like
party.
yeah, I'm kind of handling this because I'm trying to it's actually been very good, but I'm asking
Okay.
everybody to just wait till I kind of call on them.
I certainly understand.
Thank you. But that being said, why don't you go ahead and finish what you were going to say?
Okay. Well, first off, I thank John for explaining that. I think that was a very concise explanation. And John did sort of in a sentence explain why I voted the way that I did on this matter. This is, Continental Commons notwithstanding, that is an entirely separate matter, which, as far as I'm concerned, is already decided, was decided before I joined the board. But as John pointed out, when Continental Commons is completed in the next few years, whether that's 4 years, 6 years, however many years it is, Blodgett will essentially be at its capacity. So if anyone located within what would be the boundary of that district or would want to connect to that district, wanted to develop an undeveloped parcel in that area, if these districts were merged, that supply would exist, which, obviously there can be any number of steps the town can take to protect these open spaces. I served on our comprehensive plan committee, so did John. So we know that the town has certain options, but we are also aware of the reality that developers, whether it's for residential, whether it's for commercial, whether it's for industrial, will use the tools at their disposal to try to leverage the town for the projects that they're looking to build. So making a move that would establish that the Blodgett district can tap in using water which is currently available within the Glenham water district is essentially removing one of those obstacles, making it easier for future development in that area. As someone who takes the idea of protecting residents seriously, I would rather us be in a position where we are at capacity and the town board can exercise its judgment in negotiating a contract with the village regarding the sale of more water to us as needed. And knowing that the village would be willing to sell us should the town board or the planning board, et cetera, should the town as a governing body determine that something would be appropriate in keeping with our comprehensive plan, in keeping with our zoning code as written, then certainly, we could talk with the village about obtaining more water supply. That doesn't mean that the water isn't available to purchase, but we shouldn't be doling it out and then having to deal with the ramifications later. That was my particular perspective. That's all. And Karen, you're muted.
Muted myself. Okay. And this, I think you just answered this. Assessing the risk of additional development, would you say that merging water districts would open the door for additional building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I just want to make sure I'm caught up with everybody.
I would just like to stay for the record, I am not anti-development. There's a lot of development that would be very good for the town of Fishkill, but that should be for us to determine, and our resources should be allocated at that time based on the merits of the proposal in front of us. And taking an action that essentially opens the checkbook and writes a blank check, not knowing what prospective future plans in that area might be, what prospective future property owners, prospective future property developers would have in mind for those undeveloped lots, that seems irresponsible from my perspective, given what the residents have made it clear they want the town government to do on their behalf.
Okay, I got a couple more questions that came in. I'm going to ask John to answer this one. Why or how can a judge force town to enforce a request for water capacity when at the time the request was made, there was not enough? Who told the judge that there was sufficient water? Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep. You know, you asked before if we were planning on appealing that decision. And the answer was no, we didn't appeal it, you know, a year ago when it was asked. But had we appealed it and it went back to the judge, the first question the judge would have asked is there water or isn't there water? And the answer is, well, yeah, there is water because Blodgett can buy more water from the village. So there, you know, the judge ruled the way she ruled because I'm not sure the arguments were there from the town. So it is what it is. But to say that there is no water is just not, it's not accurate.
Okay. Greg, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, this is just, again, just a respectful disagreement on opinion, bearing in mind I'm not an attorney, but for me, we're talking about a difference between availability of supply currently versus a potential contractual availability of water. What the argument is, as John is saying, is does the water exist? Well, yes, the water exists, but it isn't ours. We would have to purchase it and then in turn sell it to the you know, a particular you know, property owner developer. I was not on the board, you know, during this, so that, you know, there's certain specifics that I don't have, but I don't believe that the argument was really about whether or not, or the town's argument at the very least, wasn't whether or not the water exists, but whether or not we own it. We don't own the water that will be provided. We have to purchase it from the village, which is a contractual matter, which does, you know, place a burden on the town. And that's where the balancing test comes in of, does this benefit the residents? Does it benefit all of the residents, et cetera? And why the town's initial determination was no. But of course, that was, you know, overturned in court, and the town did have the opportunity to appeal that, but the board did elect not to do so.
Okay. Okay, next question. How does this impact the hot mess that is Duchess Mall? I don't know what this is. I'm assuming how will it impact the Duchess Mall if they get water, and how would it impact it if they don't? That's something you can speak to. I don't know.
You know, this an Ozzy question because he would know, but I don't know if the Duchess Mall is in the Blodgett Water District or not. They may be purchasing water either in a different district or directly from the village. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, John, I think you're right. I do not believe that they are connected to the Blodgett Water District. If I am remembering correctly, they are a well. They're provided water by a well, so they get their own water supply. If my memory serves me correctly, it may not. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But you know, that would be something I'm sure we'd be happy to clarify at any future you know, meetings that you put together, Karen. I'm sure we'd be happy to give you that exact detail.
Yes. Okay. I do have someone asking about Brian Rye. I'm not going to be able to answer any questions about Mr. Rye because he opted not to come tonight. He initially, we hadn't heard from him. I did hear from him yesterday. He actually sent me along. It was just like all of these points that are in the grant. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put his email in the chat, and just if anybody wants to get in touch with him directly, that is Brian Rye's email. I will say, just having run this group for over 10 years, I feel, and the volunteers who have been helping us out are very much feel that transparency and discussion with community members is critical. And oops, I put it in the wrong space. So I will let everyone draw whatever conclusions they want. That one of our council members, and the most vocal one on that video, in my opinion, did not show up tonight. We will be holding these discussions. I think this is great. I love the fact that we've got this many people on the call. I love the fact that everybody's asking questions. I know it's hard for everyone to get to these town board meetings and to stand there and ask questions. So I'm very happy that we are able to provide this forum that makes it, I guess, a little easier for everybody. Okay. Okay, I got a message and I think it's very nice, and I agree with this. I think we should continue to applaud vigorous, positive debate among our elected town officials. This is a disagreement within that body. We should applaud them for this, and I do. The 3 people who showed up today, I applaud you. So I do think it's hard to get up, you know, especially if you're having a disagreement. It's hard to get up and in front of a group of people and argue your points without being argumentative, which is what I was really looking forward to do. Does anyone else have any other questions other than a thank you to Greg, John, and Ozzy for showing up tonight? Okay. In that case, I will let you guys all give last kind of closing thoughts if you want, and I will start with Greg because you got signed on last, so we'll hear from you first now.
And he speaks the longest.
He does. We all know
my
that.
comments.
Okay.
I'm going to be short and sweet on account of the fact that I missed most of the most of the discussion this evening. I just want to thank Keep Fishkill Beautiful for hosting another forum, an opportunity for us to speak directly with residents. Of course, if residents do ever have any questions, our town board meetings are the first and third Wednesdays of the month. We have 2 different opportunities for the public to speak at every town board meeting. I can assure you they're not always as contested as our most recent one. But those types of disagreements, as Karen put them, I think that's a very generous summary, happen when you're invested in. Oh, I'm sorry, does everybody have me?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
I was saying those types of disagreements do tend to happen when you care about what you do. And I'm just reiterating that the decision that I made when it came to that vote is one that I stand by. I do believe that it's in the best interest of the residents, but there's a reason why all of us were elected, because the residents want us to exercise our judgment in their best interest. So thank you for hosting this, and I look forward to seeing people out and about in the town of Fishkill. And just a reminder, baseball opening day is the end of this month, and Renegades baseball is back in the month of April. Yay.
Yeah, somebody's putting something in the chat. I am not going to get into direct attacks on anyone, period. So you're right when you say, I know you won't say it, so I'm not going to say it. John, why don't you go next? Give a wrap up, your final thoughts of what.
Yep. So, I always hear Ozzy say, we agree on 95% of the things that are happening in the town of Fishkill. I would say it's probably 85%, but we do agree on a lot of things. And, there is sometimes there's heated debate on the floor during the meeting, and it's not a good look sometimes. People who are there, people who are watching, believe me, I hear it when I'm getting gas or at the deli or ShopRite. I do hear about it. So we can all do a better job trying to keep our cool, make our points. We all have our beliefs. We all feel that we all got elected by the same people for different reasons, I guess. But we can have a spirited debate. We can work together. And I'll tell you, we have this 5th town board seat that is vacant. And, I've had people say to me, what are you guys gonna do? And I was like, you know what? I think the four of us have some type of obligation to show the residents of Fishkill that we can, to a certain degree, run this town with four people on the town board. And evidently, ultimately, the people decide who that fifth person is. But so far, 2 months in, we've gotten through our meetings, and we'll
Okay,
just take it one meeting at a time.
okay. Thank you. And Ozzy, if you're still here. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, this is just a culmination of what I've said decades ago, that for 50 years you've seen massive development in the town of Fishkill, and it always benefited developer. John knows, he's on the board. 2 years ago, we had to fix a $100,000 sewer pipe because the developer put the wrong pipe in. The residents of that district had to pay it. In that same water district on the 9D corridor, there was a bolt that broke, costing those residents $100,000 and washing out their road. We're dealing with a Christmas problem in the Brickeroff Water District that we had to shut the water down, and we spent about 110 grand right now working on some valves to prevent a catastrophic event in the Brickeroff Water District, because developers were always allowed to piggyback on these water districts. After the last town board meeting, I met with the health department, and they were clear. The developers just did whatever they wanted. No one stopped them. And now the residents of Fishkill have to pay for that. We were building an interconnection. The original cost when I inherited was a $5.6 million plan. The health department looked at it, and I dropped it down to about 1.2 million. And at that same meeting last week, they asked, how'd you shrink it so much? And where's your excess capacity for the future? And I was blunt with them. I said, listen, if there's a good development that comes down the road, the developer can pay for those upgrades and that infrastructure, not the taxpayers. It's just a long, hard road, and the citizens of the town of Fishkill get it. And I'm so proud. If you watched the last planning board meeting, you had multiple planning board meetings say to a developer that they don't run the town, the citizens of Fishkill run the town. It's a mindset. They said it couldn't be done. And controlling your water is just another step of controlling development. And that's how I view this. Whatever I can do to protect the citizens of Fishkill, and people can say it's this and this, and Ozzy says this and this and this. And I don't disagree with John, but I think we agree 90% of the time. I don't think it's 85% of the time. And we do, and we get things done. We get things done, and I hear the opposite. People tell me they like to see the give and take, and they like to see it keeps them awake. If they nod off, they miss something. So it's become a much must see TV in the town of Fishkill, and if that gets people to watch the meetings, if they know something might happen or somebody might say something, they don't want to miss it. Instead, and trust me, I sat at meetings. Back in the early 2000s on a Wednesday morning at 9:30, I'd be the only citizen in the town boardroom, no recording or nothing. Supervisor Lacola got him on TV, and I still was maybe with 2 or 3 people. You come to one of my town board meetings in the last 4 years, 5 years, you got 10, 15, 20 people showing up. It's different. There's more citizen participation. There's more community outreach, and quite frankly, I enjoy it, and I enjoy protecting the citizens and the developers. And I'm not totally anti-development. And if you notice something, by as a right, the town of Fishkill has close to 250 to 300 as a right homes coming into the town of Fishkill just in the next 5, 6, 7 years. That's what's going to happen as a right. They're building in here. We've got a nice steady pace. But imagine the town of Fishkill with another 1,400 homes coming through here. Just imagine that. More roads, more school teachers, maybe a new school, more cops to patrol, more roads to plow. Your taxes go up. So I've changed that, and my philosophy is shifting it from residential to commercial is playing out. I'm working in another project. There's 2 projects right now that developers wanted to put high density housing. I got commercial coming in instead. So the developers, they're going to make money. It's just a matter whether they make easier money on high density housing if they have water and sewer capacity, or they do commercial.
And I want to shift the town more to a commercial venue, which we've been doing. I want to shift it from a town being run to benefit developers to one that invests in this community quality of life. We got almost $2 million this year budgeted to improve our parks, recreation, and our historical preservation. This has never happened before, and I thank John for voting for this stuff. This is what we're supposed to be doing, and I'm proud of it. And I'm happy to attend these type of meetings and meet the citizens and voice my opinion of why I do things. So sometimes I don't communicate as clear, but trust me, never doubt that my number one rule, and I say this all the time, if it does not benefit the citizens of Fishkill, I just don't do it. And I stand by that, and that's how I've governed the last 5 years. And that's pretty much all I have to say tonight. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
So, what I want to say in conclusion, and this is, first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody. I'm getting some direct messages of people who are really happy with how this went. I see some going out to everybody. Thank you, Mary. I think that was really sweet. I appreciate it. This has been, it's a lot of hard work to do this, and there is not a single person, one individual running this group. There are quite a few. I know my face is on a lot of things, as is Ann McGoy, but we are not working in a silo. So I want to say thank you to the volunteers who are helping us in the background. And I did get a message from a resident that I wanted to make sure. I said to myself, I'm going to bring it up on the call tonight, because it was a resident from the village, and they kind of said, well, why should I be on that call? What does it matter to me? And so I want to make sure that I want to be really clear with the building that's going on, that Keep Fishkill Beautiful is not keep the town of Fishkill beautiful. It's not keep the village of it's Keep Fishkill, because we all drive the same roads. We all send our kids to the same schools. This is what we're here for, each other. And I will say straight up, when I started Keep Fishkill Beautiful, it was over a decade ago. It was about 15 years ago. And I started it because they were looking to put up a high density housing unit about, I want to say 8 feet from my property line on the Baxter Town Woods property. And the reason I went to all that trouble was, yes, I was directly affected, but I have learned since that time that whether or not you're directly affected, if you only act in your own interests, you don't have any power or weight. And so that is why when we, if you live in the village, you can vote in the town. If you live in the town, you should care about what happens in the village. We're all here together on this. I was part of that comprehensive plan committee, and there was nothing that people cared about more than development in this area. There's a lot of other important things, but that was the most important by a mile, and that's why we're holding these meetings. So I am going to go ahead and conclude. I'm going to stop recording. I will say that I would, I would hope that we get the entire board at future upcoming meetings, because I do think that this went really well, and I do think that Ozzy and Greg and John, it helps everybody kind of have a better feeling about what's going on. So I'm going to stop the recording. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Like I said, if you need anything, just let me know. Okay, more messages coming in, not important. And thank you all.